Here we are on the first day of this Zen Zoom gathering in May 2021. Wow, I guess we first did this in April 2020, and here we are, 13 months on. I mean, it's, we'll look back on this as a really interesting, and probably look back on it as a precious time for practice. All the many challenges of this COVID period have, among the many things it's also, I think, for many, been some kind of practice intensifier. Uncertainty is our constant companion, actually. It's a sad thing, and it's a true thing that we're, in a way, we're kind of one phone call away, all of us, from unknown challenges, and none of us are immune to that. Doesn't matter on, wealth and status, and no protectors against it, and the uncertainty that the COVID situation has sort of accentuated for us, of course, it's been very challenging for many people, immensely so, and it is also kind of a call to action for practitioners to intensify their practice and to live out their practice, live out our practice more keenly, more committedly, wholeheartedly in the world. Simply put, it's sort of discovering the love and then living the love. And I'm going to try to talk a little bit about what I mean by that, and what how Zen sort of helps us do that. So this retreat is called Zen Basics. So I wanted to kind of allow Valerie and myself broad latitude in sort of speaking about what this Zen is all about, how it is distinguished, let's say, from other kinds of Buddhist practice, and of course has a lot in common in some ways, but it is a distinct tradition, and what are some of its distinct characteristics, and vis-a-vis any other system of, broadly speaking, spiritual cultivation, spiritual in a non-religious sense. It is an awkward word that I've never been very keen on, but it is a necessary word, really, because we just don't have another one. Sometimes I used to talk about sort of existential exploration, which is possibly some of it, heart exploration. Yeah, that's the crucial part of it too. And psychological development is part of it as well. And we really just don't have, the best word we got, I think, is spiritual, because sort of about our ethical life, our moral life, our inner life, our psychological life, our interpersonal life, our transpersonal life, and then it's about this great and extraordinary and wonderful matter of awakening, of finding that, there's just so much more to this moment than we commonly experience. And there's so much more to what we are, really, than we commonly experience. And then on the other hand, there's quite a bit less to what we ordinarily think we are. So all of that, I mean, what do you call all of that? Spiritual's inadequate. And it also has some sort of, can have notions of sort of something, the spirit as opposed to this ordinary experience of this moment. That's wrong as well, but still, let's use it for now because we haven't got anything better. Except it's a great wheelbarrow of terms we'd have to wheel in to cover it all. Zen Basics. Well, I thought I could just start by actually talking a little bit about, one sort of perceived founder of Zen, Bodhidharma, and what he said about Zen. Bodhidharma was this Indian master, Buddhist master, who came to China in the 6th century. And there've been scholars, especially Western scholars, in the last 50 years, 60 years probably, who were rather scathing about gullible Westerners believing in Bodhidharma as a historical figure and sort of put him to bed as a historical personage and merely a legendary figure. Bodhidharma is actually revered not only in the Zen tradition, but also in various martial arts schools. And there's a temple at Shaolin that he's associated with. And, if any of you saw Kung Fu in that, it's a great show, actually. I watched some episodes recently. It came out in the 70s, but you can still find it. And it's David Carradine playing this Kung Fu master wandering around the western deserts of America. This sort of Kung Fu master in a cowboy movie kind of thing. It's a TV show. It's really fun. And you get snippets of his training in the temple back in Shaolin. And among the many little, episodes of his training, like things like, for example, a courtyard covered in dry autumn leaves. He's got to walk over it without making a sound, that kind of thing. Or, many, it's like and he's got this blind master who some of you will know this, and it might be fun to remember it, and some of you won't know what I'm talking about, but it's this great show. His blind master could, there's episodes, for example, where this blind master is attacked by 14 brigands on the highway. And though blind, he sort of maims all of them. They're all lying on the ground by the end, And Kung Fu, I can't remember actually the name of the character, but the main character, he's ready when he can grab a pebble from his master's hand. In other words, when his capacity to move is undetected in advance by his master, and also quicker than his master's reactions. Still, though the man is blind, and finally, after many, many years, he can do it. So Shaolin is where all that training happened. And indeed, there are trees at Shaolin, apparently, that have inch-deep holes in them. And this was from karate training, where the trainees had to sort of jab a tree with a single finger until to the point where they could actually penetrate the wood with one finger as a sort of karate blow, like a drill, But I mean, aside from all those feats, there was the sitting. And Bodhidharma is famed for, having come to China arriving at the ripe old age of 130 and spending 9 years sitting in a cave in Shaolin. And this sitting in the cave on his own was his way of bringing Zen Buddhism or Dhyana Buddhism to China. That's the idea. Sitting in a cave and actually turning away people who wish to study with him, turning them away. Just his sitting was his way of bringing this practice to China. I mean, if you compare that with the way Zen has come to the West, over the last, I don't know, 80, 90 years or something, there's been, of course, there have been some masters who came and sat, did a lot of sitting, but they did a whole lot of teaching, and there've been books. And it's mostly, it's come with a mixture of books and practice that has spoken teaching and written teaching associated with it. And yet, actually, here we are gathering for a retreat. And yes, there's a talk happening now, and there will be one each day, and there will be some Q&A. But basically, what we've gathered to do is to sit predominantly in silence together via technology, but truly together. Basically doing what Bodhidharma did in the cave. Silent sitting. That's the core of Zen, actually. I mean, without that, forget it, And if that's the only thing you do, you're doing Zen. The sitting, the human being sitting, is the whole of Zen. That's it. I mean, really, that's it. Now, we could for sure parse it out a bit more. We could say, well, it's a human being, and there's a heart, there's a mind, there's a body. Sure, but in the actual experience here and now, there's sitting that includes body sensation, seeing, hearing, maybe a little waft of incense being smelled, maybe a sip of tea being tasted. Now and then a thought comes, and it's part image, it's part talk in the mind, and on it goes. Now and then a feeling comes, could be some anticipation, right now could be a little sort of unease, what's this guy going to talk about? Is it going to be crazy and challenging, or what are these days going to be like? How is it going to be to sit for 4 days? It's a journey. Well, it is a journey. It's a journey into the unknown. And part of our practice is learning to be here now more and more, such that we're on the edge, we're on the cutting edge, we're on the crest of now, and we don't know what's coming. All we know is this. And what do we know of this? Well, we might know those things I just enumerated, but our sitting allows us to go into these experiences of seeing, hearing, feeling, etc. more deeply. We can kind of sink. What happens is, as we're still, we realize that we've been living very much on the surface of life, in the same way that the surface of the ocean is turbulent. The waves are stronger, the currents are stronger, there's spray, there's splash, there's spume, storms come. In the same way, being on the surface of life is much more turbulent. And actually, if we're still, we start to go deeper into the waters of being. And, you drop down 10 feet and spray, wind, they've stopped. We're down. There's still movement. If it's stormy weather, 10 feet down, the water's still moving, but it's easier. It's easier. The movements are lesser. Current's still happening, yeah. And you go down deeper and you reach a certain point and it's still. It doesn't matter how turbulent it is. On the surface, there's a stillness. And this is true of our being. By being still in body, the mind becomes, in time, also more still. The heart becomes more exposed. It's easier to know what feelings are moving through, what energies are in, energies of emotion, of feeling, of whatever they are. They're easier to detect, and it's easier to let them be here because we've got this space of stillness around us and around them, and they can untie themselves more easily, do their thing and dissipate more easily. And then gradually we realize, well, actually there's a whole great ocean. There's a whole great ocean. And now that I'm using that, of course, just now as a metaphor, but it's not just a metaphor, it's an experience. We can gradually, this is part of the process of the sitting, that gradually it can become clearer that this moment in which sort of on the surface, I see camera in front of me, walls around me, my wife Claire actually knitting on the bed, and and the daylight coming into the room, and the desk, and probably some mail I should have dealt with, and and so on, cupboard, and Buddha over there on the bookshelf, and I see all this, and I feel this body, and I'm hearing, of course, this voice. I'm also hearing now and then other things. All that's happening, and yet at the same time, there's a great expanse around it, behind it, within it. But it's a strange expanse because nobody knows how big it is. It doesn't. Sometimes it seems like expanse. Sometimes it seems like no size at all. And this box of a room, it's just no dimension. And sometimes it seems that it's the merest of appearances. Dogen said, this whole world is no more than a little gleam of moonlight on a single dewdrop. He's trying to get at this extraordinary reality, extraordinary face of our experience that we can come to discover through being still, whereby it is apparent that all of this solid stuff is just appearances, just in the Greek, phenomena. That means appearings. It's just appearings. And as we sit deeper, we start to sense that these very appearances are kind of dust, made of dust. And that dust is, in the end, sort of made of nothing. We can come to that kind of clarity about this moment, all through sitting still. That's really sort of the heart of Zen, the most basic of Zen basics. Okay, so now I'm going to get a little bit more wordy, about it, as Bodhidharma did, in fact. He said there are 4 marks of Zen. This is in some ways a traditional Buddhist kind of thing to have marks. Like Buddha said, existence has 3 marks: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. I don't want to go into those right now. I'll stay with Bodhidharma. And there are other lists of marks. Bodhidharma came up with his list of 4 marks of the kind of practice he wanted to convey, or he just did convey. And these 4 marks are, and this is what I really want to get into a little bit here, as sort of just clarifying these key points about Zen as sort of substance of this talk. Not that it's going to be a very long talk, but he said Zen is, here they are, the first mark. It's a special transmission outside scripture, number 1. Number 2, it doesn't rely on words and letters. Number 3, it's about pointing directly to the heart mind, to the heart, to the mind, which are encapsulated in one word in Chinese, Xin. It's about pointing directly to who we are, or pointing directly to our core, pointing directly to our heart, pointing directly to our mind. In other words, bringing that into clear attention, clear focus, pointing at it, making us look at it. And fourthly, becoming Buddha by doing that, by the pointing to the mind, seeing the mind clearly, becoming Buddha. Becoming Buddha, it sounds awfully grand, but Buddha means awakened. Let's just remember that. So it means awakening, the possibility of awakening by examining our own heart. Something like that. That would be the 3rd and 4th marks. Okay, so what does all this mean? Special transmission outside scripture. You can't get it, or you won't discover it just by reading, just by studying. It's not an intellectual or conceptual matter at all. Doesn't mean it's sort of bad to, read scripture or read whatever. No, it may be very inspiring for us to do that. And after all, there are an insane number of Buddhist scriptures, and including Zen writings. There's this, I know you probably get them all on an iPhone, but in the old days, you need a vast library for all of it. Huge amounts of written matter. And what are they all for? Well, they're all trying to point us to something that isn't found on the written page. Where is it found? Where is it found? And what is it really pointing us to, if not the ideas? Okay, then the second one is not relying on words and letters. This would seem sort of almost like similar to the first one, right? Sort of a corollary of the first one. It doesn't rely on them. It's not found in scripture. You can't study this intellectually and get it. That's not where it's to be found, not in the ideas that are conveyed and contained in written works or even spoken offerings. And it doesn't rely on words and letters. It doesn't need them. It doesn't need them. Now the koans are, you think, well, what about them? They're words. Well, yeah, but when we are opened by a koan, like a flower, fertilized by a koan, so that we open and we discover the world the koan is sort of magically contains, we realize that the koan is just really as different from words as an oak tree is from an acorn, or as a peony is from its seed. It's so different what the koan really is than what it seems to be. And actually, the koans themselves are filled with incidents of how Zen masters taught. And in many, many, many cases, it was weird. It certainly wasn't verbal. Like one master would always just hold up a finger. That was Master Gute. Special transmission outside scripture, not relying on words and letters. What's being transmitted? What's being conveyed? Is it really being conveyed? Or is it something we ourselves find here and now? Another master, Seppo, apparently he would sometimes come into the Zendo, and he had these wooden balls he liked, I guess a little bit like bowling balls, and he would roll them down the Zendo. So he'd arrive, I don't even really see what I'm doing, but roll a ball like a bowling ball right down the middle of the hall. And then another one. He had several of them. He'd just roll them down the hall. That was his teaching. I think, well, how do I get my head around that? How do I possibly unravel the knot of that kind of teaching? What am I supposed to do with it? And how absurd. Why waste my time with this nonsense, really? Well, maybe quite a reasonable question, but he's sort of he's rolling a ball right down the middle of your own heart. And when Gute lifts his finger, it's right in the middle of your own heart. Where is your heart? Is it just a chamber, an organ in here, in the chest? Well, let's look at the third mark. The third mark is pointing directly to the human heart. It's often translated mind, actually, but the word is shin, which encompasses both heart and mind. And here's another thing, like the word spirituality. We don't have a good word for it in English, for this, what's really being conveyed by shin. As you could say heart mind, but that's kind of awkward, and it doesn't really switch something on in us when we hear heart mind. I don't think. If you say mind, it's just for most of us, it goes kind of a little bit intellectual, conceptual. That's wrong. So if you go heart, that's closer, but it can have, sort of sentimental overtones or something, which is not supposed to have. And it also isn't just about emotion. It's pointing directly to us somehow is maybe a way of putting it, pointing directly to you, to me. That's what Zen does. It asks, who are you? Who are we? Who am I? What am I? How does it ask that? Well, oftentimes just this way, sitting. And sometimes with the koans in the ways I've been mentioning. So it's like, okay, so then we just can't stop with heart being enclosed in the rib cage. Whatever it's pointing to, if this is pointing to it, if rolling a ball is pointing to it, it's something about, all our experience here and now. Where do we draw the line? Why must I think that I am just, that what I am is some little, roaming homunculus within this skin bag? Sometimes experienced in the head, sometimes in the foot, and in points in between, or some little rolling nugget that moves around within the skin bag. Why must I think that? Why wouldn't I also include this whole experience? Right now, this whole field of experience that each of us is experiencing right now, this whole sort of space of experience. Sure, it includes the body and includes sense fields. It's one whole experience. And these sense channels are open to that. So if this is the heart and this arises in the heart, if I could put it like that, or the rolling ball, or Buddha himself, when he was transmitting, conveying this reality of Zen in the Zen tradition, when he was conveying it, what did he do? He held up a flower, okay, two beautiful flowers. So again, if this is pointing to the heart, if that's what Zen does, here it is, here's the heart. According to Buddha, he said, I have the wondrous heart of nirvana. Now I transmit it, the true form of no form. Now I transmit it to Kashyapa, one of his followers. Kashyapa, what happens? Buddha, in the big assembly, he held up a flower. And apparently everybody just kind of sat there, except for Kashyapa, who smiled. He was seeing the great heart of the whole world. And he saw that this was it. And he smiled. And Buddha, Kashyapa recognized one another in and as that heart. It's like two, kind of like a light bulb with two filaments, both glowing within the same light bulb. If you see what I mean? That image, Buddha and Kashyapa, both within one heart. Each is all, each is within all. They're together in all. And that's considered to have been the first moment of transmission of Zen. And again, By the way, I hope you can see these beautiful flowers. This is heart of Zen right here. Thank you, Margie. Again, look at this. Look at this. Oh, it's quite heavy, actually. I don't want to turn it all the way around just in case I sort of mess up. But how lovely. Okay. Special transmission, outside scripture, not relying on words, pointing to the human heart and becoming Buddha. So, what's this becoming Buddha business? The awakening business. Yeah. I mean, I hesitate to talk too much about this. It's I suppose I've got to a little bit, but the challenge really is that you know, awakening, at least as Zen understands it, is a profound sort of shift in how we experience this moment, from being an I who's sort of looking out at the world, who's receiving impressions of the world, to, in some strange way, discovering that that I has never really been here, and that what we are is part of everything. That's a way of describing it. But the thing is, I don't, there's a real problem here, which is that it can be challenging to hear about this kind of thing if we haven't experienced it. And I want to really reassure everybody, or sort of affirm, that there are different dimensions of practice, and they're all valuable. They're all immensely valuable, but perhaps infinitely valuable. Our number one purpose in practice has to be to become, more helpful while we're alive on this earth. That has to be the number one purpose, that we be somehow a gift to the world rather than, a harm. And that's a lot of work right there. We come pre-programmed, with these evolutionarily selected impulses that are generally, quite sort of selfish and potentially harmful. We also do apparently come with some predisposition to be collaborative and cooperative and kind and helpful. We have that as well. And practice is about drawing that forth more and sort of taming the other side of it, the so-called three poisons. It is a detoxification process. It is a kind of recovery from, in a certain sense, kinds of addiction, really, that we get very attached to, our sense of self and what it wants, and these poisons. And practice can allow us to become more aware of that. You can really start to feel when your emotion center is engaged, how it pulls you. It doesn't want you to go away. You're sort of tethered to it. Your attention gets really pulled by it. You can see that, and see, if imagery comes up that's sort of in some way uh, also kind of adhesive, sort of sticky for you, whether it's remembering some encounter you had that was difficult for you, or anticipating something that is, you're uneasy about, or whatever it may be, or something that you really want. you can feel the pull. The more you practice, the more clearly you can feel the pull of these things. And that's good. That's how we learn to be with craving, which is one of the core issues in Buddhism, as Buddhism sees it, and really rather accurately. One of our core human issues is our craving, and the flip side of that, our sort of intolerance for things, our resistance to things. So the sort of craving, the wanting, 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 and the resistance, the not wanting, not wanting, not wanting. Those two things are can be, very magnetic, very adhesive for our attention, and becoming more adept at detecting them and letting that elastic pull slacken and being soft around it, so it's more easily borne, more easily tolerated. These are invaluable skills at learning not to just act out our impulses, our programming, learning instead to be aware of it and give it space to do what it does. This would all be part of examining the human heart, the third mark of Zen. And then that fourth mark, becoming awakened, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? One master said, I've got a yellow leaf in my hand, and all these people think it's gold. They catch a little glimpse of it, and they want it. They think it's gold. And we're like that with awakening. Those of us who somehow have the drive to seek it, some glittering golden reality, and maybe we get a flash of it, and it seems to live up to that, and then it kind of fades, we lose it, and then got to go further, and finally decades of practice, we might get it more stably and really somehow be able to, the well is always open, and we can always be here in a more sort of awakened way. True. I mean, true enough. Less self, more all, more whole, more. But actually, the further we go, the more normal it is. That it loses its glitter, loses its allure, loses its shine. It's normal, not so special after all. Not so special after all. So if you had a glimpse and a gleam and a glint and a whatever, you had a taste, if you've found this wonder, great. But go on until it's not special. And if you haven't, please don't worry about it. Please don't. It's not worth it. I'm telling you, it's not worth the trouble. Much more important is to love your own heart, and from that, love others more. Don't only try to love others. Please try to love yourself. I mean, everybody, you see, the great thing, one little good thing about awakening that I can share with you, whether you've tasted it or not, is that it makes it very clear that everybody is infinitely good. We all are innately, infinitely good. Like, how often do we feel that way? But it's true it's really clear from sort of point of view of awakening. That is the case. And all the more reason why we sort of want to clear up these poisons, because they make that unclear. And it's a crying shame that we're not sort of enabled to so appreciate this innate goodness we all have. So I want to actually do some point in this retreat, some meditation on innate goodness. And I hope to share that. Okay, we're going to end there. And maybe Valerie will bravely go into the territory of awakening more explicitly than I've done today. We'll see. But please, 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 whatever, don't, if you've had some glimpses and maybe you're even learning to reside a little bit more stably there, great, but don't think too much of it. No big deal. And if you haven't maybe had sort of clear glimpse of it, forget about it. It's not worth the trouble. If it comes, it comes. We've all got to do the work anyway of sort of clearing up the toxified system. We've all got to do that. And if you think awakening sweeps that away in one fell swoop, no. It sort of does in one sense because you see everything's empty. So therefore, all that toxicity is not really there. True enough, fine, yes. But you're still a human. You're still in a web of relationships. You're still going to fuck up. I'm sorry. It's the truth. You're still going to have terrible losses. I'm sorry, it's the truth. You're still going to have to deal with being human. And then, the work is how to more and more let that human life be soaked in the wisdom of the awakening. And that's a long, long work. And so you may as well just forget about it either way and live now. Don't have some idea running in your mind, I'm awakened. If you have it, no. That's just a thought. This moment. Remember, this is it. This is it. This is it. Nothing special. It's a finger. We all got, most of us have got 10 fingers, on the whole. 70 billion fingers on Earth. Not that special. You see what I mean? Of course, it's very, very special because everything that arises is special. Just that one finger. That's why this is a coincidence. It's an ordinary thing. And this ordinary thing is, what a treasure. What a treasure. Yeah. Human heart. What a treasure. Well, only we could all learn to love our hearts. This would really be the great transmission. Yeah, I mean, some spiritual systems are way better at transmitting themselves, aren't they, than Zen? They are built-in replicators. They're powerful memes in the language of memes, if you know about that. Man, some of them are just splendid at self-transmitting, self-replicating, sweeping through billions of people. They have sort of built-in methods for making it very hard to resist their message, and it gets on board, it sort of infects you, and then you have to spread it to others. Zen's not like that. It's hard. All it really wants is for you to love your own heart. That's all it really wants. And it's a tragedy that it's not so easy to do. But it's a wonder that it's possible. So let's use these 4 days to open up to this moment. We just get so many chances. Okay, thank you very much.